and welcome to Islamic Finance Weekly. I am Rahma Say Mohammed. As you all know, or for those who don't know, Islamic Finance Weekly is a program dedicated to shedding more light on Islamic banking or non-interest finance in Nigeria and across the globe. Well, today's edition is rather an interesting one. You will be intrigued to know the guests we have in the house. We have young, agile, and vibrant minds aboard who are here to discuss on a rather deliberative topic. Well, stay tuned, don't go anywhere as we unveil our guest and topic for today. Welcome back. On today's episode, we'll be discussing on driving non-interest finance awareness in Nigeria. With me in the studio by my right is Miss Halima Suleiman, Business Relationship Manager, The Alternative Bank, a subsidiary of Sterling Financial Holdings Company. Hi, Miss Halima.
Hi, Rava. Thank you to have me.
Thank you so much for coming. And by my left is Ridwan Sanusi, the founder, Harvest Financial Technologies Limited. Hello, Ridwan. Welcome.
Hi, Rahma. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Well, let's dive right into this. Okay, let's look at our first discussion for today. Islamic finance. What do you know about Islamic finance, or what do you think about Islamic finance? A personal angle. When you hear Islamic finance, what's the first thing that comes to your minds? Like, oh, Islamic finance. Oh, okay. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
So for me, like I always say that I came into this industry accidentally. I've always wanted to be a banker. Like everyone knows because of Sanusi, His Royal Highness Sanusi, And I'd always wanted to work in a particular bank. I and my friends were three. We did interviews, second stage. I was the only one who was not recruited. And I was really wailing at the headquarters of that company. Like, why was I not recruited? And the lady asked me, why did you want to join this bank? I was like, I love your founder because he actually powers banking in Nigeria. And I would really say that when I Googled the company, I didn't find the word Islamic finance. That's why sometimes words should be used appropriate according to terrains. What I saw was they said, we are the leading ethical finance in Africa. So I always tell my friends that I'm sure if I had seen leading Islamic finance Africa, I would have turned it down because I'd be like, are you trying to push me to an salad or something? Right. Yeah, so on getting to the company, luckily for me, I met her, and that's Hajara Adiola. And I asked her, because that was not even an interview, it was like a question. She asked me, I asked her, and she was the one who told me that, this is Islamic finance, and she used the word impact financing, and that is what I always share to people. She tells me that impact finance is you would feel something, a generation will feel it, and it's going to be sustainable. And that's what I think the Sukuk is about.
So impact finance, right? That's a good one, honestly. Well, Ridwan, let's see.
I mean, for me, right, when I hear Islamic finance, so I can say for myself, I was a banker. I started my career working with, Access Bank, and I understood finance, I understood banking, but it got to a point where I felt like there has to be an alternative solution to, what we were doing. Even though I really, really didn't understand Islamic finance back then, I didn't even know Islamic finance. I didn't know that there was an alternative finance that existed other than the conventional finance that I was a part of. I think the first type of finance that I learned about that really exposed me to Islamic finance was responsible financing, right? So I heard that term responsible finance. I was like, okay, what is responsible financing? It really sounds cool. So I started learning more about responsible financing, and I was shocked. I really got interested, so much interested to the extent I had to quit my job back then to go deep into Islamic finance, to become an entrepreneur in it. I started teaching people about, personal finance, investment from a responsible, financial perspective, yes. Right? So when I hear about Islamic finance, I think about responsible financing, because that was the first thing that I learned when I was learning about Islamic finance.
I mean, impact finance, responsible finance. It really does make a lot of sense because the whole idea of Islamic finance is ethic. And if it's impactful, you feel it, the next person feels it, and then the whole generation or the whole people feel it. And then while being impactful, you're being responsible in the process. So I mean, it's it's the bomb. So now we'll be highlighting the principles of, like, okay, now that's the product, that's identifying the problem and how to sell it to the people. So now these products, which are musharaka, mudaraba, murabaha, and all of that, I want us to talk about it. What do this products entail? How do we put it out to the people, and how do we make them realize, oh, this is it. This, I want to do this. I want to have this. So what's your take?
So basically for me, talking about identity crisis and also selling products, for us in the banking space, the CBN mandated us to use non-interest finance. Like going back to my story, like I was like, if I'd seen Islamic finance or their motto, most likely I would have run away.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel that one of the best things that CBN has done, in my understanding, I recently had this conversation with a customer, I think like 3 weeks ago. I was like, when they started using that word, non-interest finance, there was huge acceptability. And in Nigeria, we have this sense of like religious ownership. Like before, some people were feeling like, oh, this is our bank. So now this is everybody's bank. Right. As it should be, like talking about responsibility and impact is everyone's job. Yeah. Right. So I always sell my products according to location. For example, if you're in Lagos, any terminology works because I feel Lagos has exposed minds. I'm sorry. Right. I'm just saying according to data. Yeah, no offense, according to data. Yeah. But there are certain places that I'll go to in Nigeria that I have to use Islamic finance because once you are saying non-interest finance, it'll be like,
where is that money?
Do you even know what you are doing? And we are not all about making money. We are all about driving impact and responsibility, like he mentioned. And this needs to be sustained too. So we need to sell it in a language that they would accept, and we can be able to solve the problem. So for me, it depends on where I am. There are places I'll go to, I would say Islamic finance, somewhere non-interest, somewhere ethical. Yeah. Because if I go for a climate change summit, regardless of I know I'm going to have PhD holders and the rest, I'll call it ethical finance because that is what such people love to hear.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a terminology on its own. So
it's what you want to get.
I think is a dilemma that we face. When I say we, I'm talking about Islamic finance institutions, practitioners, right? Because again, you have to be very strategic about your product offerings, about your branding, about your communication and your messaging. Otherwise, you'll find out that people will not be receptive to whatever you're selling, right? So, for example, we're talking about the principles, the musharaka, the mudaraba, the wakala, and all the other principles. The truth is, people don't necessarily need to know that what you're using is murabaha, what you're using is musharaka. I'll give you an example. In our own company, we finance businesses, and when we're sending out contracts to these merchants, right? When I feel like this merchant might find it difficult to understand some of the terminologies that we have in our contract, we just change those terminologies, right? We change them to something that we know this person understands. But we know that we're not deviating from the core tenets of Islamic financial principles, right? So like I always say, it doesn't matter what you label something as. What is more important?
Coupled with the fact that these words are, Arabic derivatives, like, you tell someone ijara and they're wondering what is ijara. Right. So now in that aspect, you just say listen because now that's something you're leasing out. Or no, it is murabaha or mudaraba, you just say.
And I think it also helps the industry, right, to get more people to become aware of Islamic financial products, right? And it kind of reduces the burden on practitioners, even those that are in the academic space, to start teaching people about what murabaha is. You know, if you tell people that, okay, murabaha is, a cost plus financing, someone really understands that, right? But when you're trying to tell the person, oh, murabaha, trying to break down the Arabic terminology, it becomes really, really difficult for people to understand and accept whatever you're saying. So the Islamic finance professionals and practitioners really, really have a lot to deal with, especially in this part of the world. Yeah.
Exactly. Now let's look at the basic differences between. I know this part in particular is very interesting, because this is the part where you say no, Islamic finance or ethical finance is better. It's better than conventional banking or this one. And then the people in the conventional banking are like, hello, excuse me, kind of thing. But then we have to say it. There are definitely differences between Islamic finance and the conventional banking system. You are from Alternative Bank, which is a subsidiary of Sterling Bank. Sterling Bank is a conventional bank. And then they decided, let's do something ethical. Let's have a segment that does this. So what are the key differences? What are the differences between Islamic finance and conventional banking?
Sharing my real life experience, because I started my career in a conventional bank. That was the default diamond bank. And I was basically doing what I'm doing now, which is business relationship. Yeah. So I would say that there is a huge difference between conventional and non-interest banking. Just like what Ridwan mentioned, in the conventional space, we're interested in your money. While in the non-interest bank, like my bank, we call our customers partners. Right. You're not a customer, you're a partner. You are an investor. That's why when you're coming in from this, I'm going to talk about investment angle and financing angle. When you're coming in from an investor angle, we tell you that this is a profit sharing bank. We're not guaranteeing you. However, we have expatriates, professionals who say that, your money, and with historical data that, people who's brought in, for example, 100K, got their 100K plus the markup, right? Just like, and in the issue, I mean, it's possible that a day might come that the 100K owner might get 90K. So this is us saying that we are driving responsibility impact. We are not just interested in money. However, from the financing angle, which I love most, I believe that for economics like Nigeria and underdeveloped world, we need structural economics approach to drive the economy. So we need to help people who don't have a lot. And in this terrain whereby we have low financial inclusion, asset back is the best way for them.
Exactly.
In the conventional space, I've had instances whereby a customer comes to say, I need money to buy a cup. On his way home, he goes buy suya with the money. And there are issues coming. You start having bad credit score, yeah? But in the non-interest bank, when you come to us that you need a cup, we are not even giving you the cup. You go get a vendor. And you could see that this banking sector is creating impact. So a vendor gets his cup sold. A manufacturer is able to create more cups.
Exactly.
And Rahama, who needs a cup, has a cup. So you could see that in the non-interest space is a value chain transaction.
That brings us to the impact.
Exactly. While on the conventional is one-to-one.
Exactly. So you want this. Okay, let's do it together. I want to be included in this whole plan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so like some people say, right, that the conventional banks are not really interested in your business. They're not really interested in what you do with the money. Yes, they are, right? But intuitively, if anything happens to the money, they're going to come for you, right? Exactly. But in the case of the Islamic banks or the non-interest banks, right, they ensure that the money is used for the intended purpose. Now, if anything goes wrong, right, like genuinely something goes wrong, they're going to share the risk with you, right? So the conventional banks, at the end of the day, don't really care about what happens. If the business fails, you still have to pay us our money.
I mean, I gave you the money. You have to give me back my money.
And that's obviously one of the greatest benefits of the Islamic banking.
Because there is profit sharing and there is risk sharing, because you're not taking the whole of the risk. Right. Even the bank is losing, but if you're winning, we're winning together. It's a win-win situation for everybody. So let's move. like, what are the key areas or methods of leveraging awareness to make informed decision? How do you think we could, what do you think, or what methods do you think we could use in leveraging awareness to the public? Because there is definitely awareness barrier. Absolutely. People do not know about ethical finance. I mean, ethical finance is what everyone would want to embrace, but because there is limited awareness, people don't know about this. Like I said the other day at the fintech breakfast session, I told you a conversation that I had with my friend where I was like, oh, I anchor Islamic Finance Weekly. It's about Islamic finance. And then she was like, isn't that non-interest finance where you don't have interest and all of that? I'm like, okay, I know you want profits, you want money, but it doesn't have to be through interest. There are other methods that you can make money. It doesn't have to be in an unethical way. So how do you think we could get these people aware?
I mean, I think one of such is what we're currently doing right now, in terms of, coming to, a station like yours and, talking about the benefits of ethical finance, vis-a-vis, the conventional finance. About 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't say that a lot of people really, really know what Islamic finance, Islamic banking, is, and the benefits that a lot of people, especially in this part of the world, stand to gain. But I think there's been a lot of improvements, right, due to how these Islamic banks or non-interest banks that we have in Nigeria have positioned themselves, right? They've become really competitive, trying to, raise the bar and the standard. So talking about the ways that we can raise awareness amongst people, one would definitely be through product offerings, right? I think that's very critical because you need to understand how people would perceive your branding, your communication, and your messaging, right? It's very critical for the non-interest banks in Nigeria, to position them, have a unique brand positioning, right? That would attract, the kind of audience, that we want to be a part of, the Islamic financial, ecosystem. So product offering is one. The other one is obviously, through different institutions that are involved in learning and development, right? Organizing workshops and seminars, conferences. Lima was talking about, how we've had quite a number of events, that have been pioneered and, hosted by non-interest banks and, some assets management companies in Nigeria. So I feel, if we continue to do that, more people will become aware of what Islamic finance and non-interest finance has to offer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Basically, for me, I believe that one of the best ways to drive inclusion is through impact. I know one of my nephew, he's just 7, and there was someone talking about Islamic finance, and he was like, Sukuk. And I was so happy that day, yeah. And why he knows Sukuk was because he went they're from Ocean State, so he went home for Salah, and I think maybe either the parents told him that, oh, this road is Sukuk. So I was so happy to know that a 7-year-old now knows what Sukuk is. And every time I go to events, I always tell people that we need federal government, sort of like partnership, and all of that to drive this. For example, in the agri space, every time we have product wastage in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have, I think, about 90%, some people say 110% of our products being wasted because of no storage. So federal government could partner with the non-interest institutions, create all of this. This impact would really drive the inclusion of non-interest, because a child, someone who didn't go to school, can feel it. I mean, you drove through a road. This is a child. He doesn't know anything, he knows what Sukuk means. So I think we need to drive it through infrastructure. There's already education, because I feel sometimes education is just only within the urban. Because I don't think all these events, you have people coming from maybe the downside of Zamfara or the very downside of Ibadan. Sometimes I feel in Nigeria, our education is just within a particular reach. So we need to work on infrastructure.
So we need to work on aside just, the media kind of thing, we have to go deep down. look, go to this village, see, there is this banking system that will do this for you, and you don't even have to, pay a huge amount of interest, because one of the main reasons, exactly, like one of the reasons people even avoid taking loans to sponsor businesses or anything is because of the interest rates. Right. But there is this banking system that is willing to help you and be inclusive in it. I mean, they literally involve themselves in the whole process. Why would I not choose this? You get? What's your major take home? What would you say? How would you, tell people to be open to adopting the system of banking? How do you think industry stakeholders can also play a key role in this? How do we, drive inclusiveness? How do we drive inclusion, not just amongst the people, but amongst stakeholders, and even, as you mentioned earlier, the government? Because in all of this, the government have to be part. They have to play a huge role in this. How do we do that?
I mean, I think one of them. Oh, okay, Halima, please go first.
For me, I think to drive every growth and economics of a nation, it's a duty of me and you. Like I always tell people that I know I have a government, but I am the bigger government. That's what I tell people. And this is just you. Okay, there's this quote I read a long time ago. It says, you should live beyond human, live more like a messenger. Right. Because human existence will end, but the message will be passed on and on. So the greatest way for us to end this is, if you know one thing about Islam, and like I tell my colleagues, if it's only Murabaha, share your knowledge on Murabaha. If I know only Ijara, I share my knowledge. He knows only Istisna. This is like for the people out there, investment, lease. If he knows maybe even WAF, because I need to mention WAF care, which is social responsibility, and he shares his knowledge. We now have a community whereby people now know 3 methodologies to Islamic finance. So let's just keep sharing the little that we know.
No.
I mean, I like that point about, us as individuals, carrying that responsibility, right? And not just putting it on the banks or the scholars, or the government, right? About, I know Murabaha, teach it to someone else. Like someone was talking to me about a product that he got from, a bank, and he didn't really like how the product was structured. And I told him, create your own, right? Create something within your community. Yeah. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, I think that every single person can be a part of, the evolution, right, of ethical finance. Within your family, you can structure an ethical financial product. Within your religious, community, you can structure an ethical finance product. You don't necessarily have to call this Murabaha, Musharaka, like I said, responsible financing, impact financing, ethical financing. But of course, bringing it down to the more broader perspective, the government really has a critical role to play. I think that the government of Nigeria has really, really tried as far as, helping the Islamic banking, Islamic financial institutions to grow. One other, player that I think is going to play a key role in promoting, Islamic financial products, making more awareness, the regulators, right? The SEC, the CBN, because they are the ones that will really, create an enabling environment for new players, for fintech players to come in, and, just, create more product offerings. And then we have the scholars. We can't leave them out of this because they are the gatekeepers to the tenets of Islamic finance, right? And as the CBN, framework, you can't run an Islamic financial institution without having your advisory committee of experts who are the scholars. So they also have a role to play in ensuring that the knowledge, is being passed across different communities in the language that they understand, right? So I think, if we have all these players doing their own part, ensuring that, they are creating awareness, and then also the individuals were also creating awareness, I think a lot of people will get to know more about, non-interest finance. Yeah.
Right. And that will be all on Islamic Finance Weekly today. I hope you enjoyed this very deliberative session. I mean, it's other than the usual, a regular conversation around Islamic finance. So I hope you were able to pick 1 or 2 things from this. I mean, he that doesn't hear, let him hear. Let them know about it. Islamic finance is not just what you're assuming. It's actually way beyond the surface. All right. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on all our social media platforms displayed on the screen. I am Rahma Say Muhammad.